Hello friends, this is Nima. Welcome back. What a mess I have in here. I'm working with bubbles and watercolors, and I'm trying to figure out a way to make this pretty bubble designs on my paper. And I apologize for my hands. I've been playing with that. This is what I have so far, and I'm actually really happy. Some of these are in watercolor paper. These are watercolor paper. And this is just regular cardstock and 80 pounds in here. So I'm gonna try with both type of colors, the cardstock and the watercolor paper. Oh, and liquid color and other watercolors. All right, we're there. What do we have in here? I have regular dish soap, a little bit in water, and I have a container with my card on top. And this is the method that I'm working on it, that I think has been the most successful on all my experiments in here. I already added a drop of the liquid watercolors in here, a little bit of extra water that I put in there because they're very concentrated. And I'm gonna use also these other watercolors, the pens, and we're gonna test in there. Now, the first thing that I need to do is create the bubbles. In my on my desk, I have a plastic bag on there and a lot of napkins just to prevent some accident, but who knows what's gonna happen. I'm gonna create the bubbles in here, and I want all my bubbles to flow out on top of the container. So let's bring the container in here closer to me, and I have the paper. Yeah, this is a very interesting sound, no? And I want all those bubbles. And I'm just gonna drop the bubbles right on the paper in there. I'm trying to cover everything. The smaller the bubbles, the better will be. And now I'm gonna add the ink, and I'm just gonna paint the bubbles. And I'm gonna let the bubbles go in there. The more color you put, the better. But then at the same time, you don't wanna add too much water that it goes through the bubbles. When the bubbles, they start popping in there, they're gonna leave that effect. And I have tried picking up the bubble with the cardstock, and that idea didn't work for me. Try also with the liquid ink right on top. That was too much ink in there, and I think this is probably the best method. And I'm just putting colors in here. I'm really not worried too much about the combination. I just want to see how the color gets transferred to the paper. And this is using 80 pounds regular cardstock, right? This is what we have. I'm gonna put this, oops, carefully without popping the bubbles, to the side in here. I have a napkin in there waiting for that. And we're gonna do the same with watercolor paper. Let's use the napkin. Uh-oh. That's my plastic in there. So my watercolor paper that I'm using in here is the watercolor Canson. And I'm going to repeat the same method. I'm going to bubble in here until all those bubbles, they flow over the container. And I'm going to push them onto the card, on top of the card. Extra color in here. Oops. See how the bubbles are moving and are changing the structure? Now with the other paper, it gets immediately absorbed into the paper. But with the watercolor, it's going to take a little bit of time before the bubbles, they start accommodating themselves into the paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get another container and I'm going to leave this one right in here. And then we're going to do the same experiment using the pen. So here I'm back with a different container, same paper, 80-pound cardstock. And I'm going to do my experiment now with the watercolor pen. And for this, let me just tell you what I'm using. I'm using Koi Watercolor Sakura. All right. So that's like, whew, this paper is really wet, especially on that corner. Let's move this one in here. Okay, so the next one is using the watercolor paper. And I'm gonna put a piece of paper in here. Why? Because when I went to pick up the other one to transfer to the other tray, there was so much water and it was gonna take way too long to dry because all the water underneath. So this is watercolor Canson. I just put some kind of hints on the back. Yeah, let's use that one. And again, let's create the bubbles. Maybe this paper will help to absorb some of the water from the bottom and then get it dry faster. I'm trying to create small bubbles. All right, love the bubbles. And I'm going again with the same type of paint, painting the bubbles so the bubbles pop and the ink goes to the card, to the paper. Oh yeah. Yeah, I have another piece of the watercolor paper. It has already a little mark in there, but that's okay. And let's do that again. All the water is dripping to the side, so the card is dry and it's just absorbing the ink from the bubbles. Let me get the other experiment that I have on the other side and I'll be back. So I'm back in here and it's been a few minutes. This is almost dry. Look at that. Beautiful cells in there, right? And the other one as well. You can see as the bubbles are popping, it leaves that residual. Then later on you can scrape out of the card. But they're beautiful. The cells are very well defined. So on the top we have the one with watercolor, liquid watercolor. You get very nice bubbles. And the impression is really good. On the left, the largest one, these are 80-pound cardstock, and this is watercolor Canson. And you get the bubbles and a good impression. This one, I put it in the oven. These two, they didn't go into the oven, but they dry faster because I put a napkin under. And as they're getting dry, they're getting flat in here. But for these ones, I use the pans, the watercolor in the pans. And the bubbles are so defined. And they're even on this one in here that it is for the cardstock 80 pounds. You see the definition of those bubbles. It is amazing, especially in here. I don't know if you can see them very well. Yeah, that you see the double layer when I put an extra layer. That's very amazing. For the watercolors, they absorb a lot faster if you put the napkins on the bottom, because the water runs to the napkin, and we get again better definition of the bubbles when we use the watercolor and the pen. Right? So that was my experiment for today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.